Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Minds of Moria podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm joined today by Trey and our very first and special guest, Alex.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about a tournament that happened exactly a week ago that Trey, Andrew, and I went down to that was hosted by Alex. So if you want to run through that, Alex, kind of how many points it was, how the event
hmm
worked, how many days it was, etc.
Sure. I ran it last weekend and it was 16 players. That was more of a limitation of the store. They didn't want to have too many players, but they said that next time we could get some more. But we had 15 signups, and then I ran the 16th as the ringer list, and it was, I believe, 700 points. I already forgot, but I think
Yeah.
700. Yeah. And we had, I think, no repeat lists at all. I'm looking at it right now. I don't see any repeats. Oh, we have no, yeah, nothing. Literally no repeats. So a very diverse set of lists. There were some new players in with some more advanced technical players in there, like Trey and Michael and Andrew. Um, and then yeah, I mean, it was a good time.
Cool. Yeah, so Trey and I kind of talked about our list that we were taking or going to take to this
hmm
tournament. So Trey, you want to walk through your list that you took?
So the list I ended up taking, I don't know when this will come up, but I really don't care if people know. I ended up taking my master's list minus the taskmaster, or not the taskmaster, minus the chieftain, so minus the heroic march,
hmm
which actually turned out to be a big thing. I should have dropped a Hasharan instead of the march, but it worked decently well even without the march. I guess we'll get there. But it was Dalamir as my leader, Delgamar for just a might source, and then three Hasharan with 42 bodies, 13 bows, 18 throwing weapons, a bunch of reroll to wounds, and Hatred Gondor.
Very important.
Yeah. Yep, that came in clutch at a certain point. And I was taking Grand Army of the South that Trey wrote up for me. I actually really enjoyed the list, but it was Golden King, Amdur, and a Dragon Knight on horse, and 28 models, I think. A lot of
Yeah.
Black Dragons with Pike, six Acolytes, and then some Raiders. So it was pretty fast with the drum and the cavalry, but the Golden King was the only slow piece in the army. So hits like a truck, but can't really take anything back.
Yeah, I mean both lists are really good. I was actually going to ask, is Delgamar still 3 might or is he 2 might now?
He is one of the few three might heroes. So he's three
Oh,
might
wow.
with three attacks. So he's amazing.
Yeah,
How many
that's pretty
points
good
is he?
actually.
75. 75 for
Okay.
fight five, strength four, three attacks, three might. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's rare
And
now.
he's yeah. So I don't know. My list, I think part of the weakness of my list was that it has low might and like it only has I think seven, no eight. And Trey came with a lot,
Nine.
not that much might because Harish shouldn't have
All my
one, but
Hasharan have one,
Isharan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do we just want to go into round one and explain that in the pool and stuff?
Yeah, sure. Do y'all remember what pool was? Because I don't.
First pool was
Yes.
Maelstrom.
Hmm. That's right, I do remember that actually. Everyone complained about that.
Michael, you want to go into your game for game
Sure.
one?
So I was up against Griff, and we had a bit of a civil war going because he was taking Harad with a Mumuk.
Yep.
So he had a Mumuk with the Beastmaster and ropes, which came important. I don't know if he had Signals of Defiance, probably. And he had the Betrayer and a Taskmaster. I think he had like 26 models. So it was basically a Mumuk and then a small warband of those two that combined into like this semi-fighting force. Mostly a couple of raiders, a couple African guard, I think a couple watchers, and it was Maelstrom. So I vetoed hold ground because I'm never playing hold ground against a Mumuk. So that was a very easy veto decision for me, and he vetoed. I think he vetoed command the battlefield. So it was either heirlooms or sites of power, both which I felt pretty good about because I have a lot of speed and I can spread out pretty reasonably well. And so we ended up playing heirlooms, which was a fun scenario. Definitely not. But what's nice about this is both our Maelstrom rolls were awesome. His Betrayer and Taskmaster rolled fives, and the Mumuk rolled sixes, or one six, I
Classic.
guess. So No might needed to be spent. He put the Betrayer and Taskmaster like kind of near a corner on one side of the objective, and the Mumuk probably like 20 inches away on the other side. But they were pretty close together. And I started by rolling a 5 for the Golden King. And my strategy going into this was if I can just kill his general and his banner and just have a Mumuk running around, I can deal with that. So my goal is just to wipe out a small warband. So I brought the Golden King right next to him, a little bit farther away, just so I didn't get any weird things happening if none of the rest of my warband showed up. And then Amdur and the Dragon Knight both rolled 5 and 6. So no one had to spend any might, and I came right next to a small warband, and we got stuck in. He threw some guys to pin me first turn and just started running away with the Betrayer, who threw a Panic Steed to Amdur, who threw a Might and like 2 Will, I think, to resist. And then the 6 dudes that he threw in to stop me, I killed all 6 that turn. So it kills well. I think I've thought about this, and Amdur was just into 1 without the charge, and I thought about calling a combat. I couldn't get into anyone, but I could just try soloing into the Betrayer if I wanted to next turn. But I didn't end up calling the combat. He won priority, got the Panic Steed off on Amdur, and he ended up prone. So Amdur was basically on the corner of the edge. I started moving my army forward, and he called a march with the Mumuk and moved it straight towards the middle. Because at this point, we had revealed the 2 on our side were both decoys, and there were 4 on the other side of the board. Those are going to be the points. So I was running some of my cav that way. But at this point, I think I had already killed like 8 of his models, and I was just chasing down his remaining stuff. I called a combat with the Golden King, the Dragon Knight, and got into the Betrayer and his banner. I didn't kill the Betrayer, but killed the banner, which is useful because there are banner points and heirlooms. And then his movement kind of just started moving to the middle. His guys with the ropes slowly came down and started tagging objectives. And then we kind of got in this awkward standstill where I could have tried to pick an objective, but he was within 8 of a Mumuk, and I had no might. So if he ended up picking it up and it was the actual heirloom, he'd just get run over. So I was kind of like dancing around. My raiders were actually getting shot out a lot by the Mumuk, which was annoying. But basically, what ended up happening in the end is it was down to 2 objectives left, and he picked it up with one of his archers, probably like 12 inches away from the Mumuk. I ran a Haradrim, or no, I picked it up, I think, with my dude. Yeah, I ran in with the Haradrim, picked it up, and he just brought a Haradrim dude against my Haradrim, won the fight, killed it, took the objective, and I'd broken him at that point, just barely. So the guy passes his test, and then the Mumuk turns around, and I had kind of created this like shield of guys because I didn't want him to get close to the archer in case like a standfast or somehow he gets someone to dismount and get close to him. So he ran over a bunch of dudes. I did stop him, and then in that turn, quartered him. Well, I'd actually argue he quartered himself because he called a combat with a Mumuk, and he dismounted all his dudes off the rope to begin with, and then ran over his army off of the combat to quarter himself. And the last kill to quarter him was an Easterling and 2 pikes and the Dragon Knight into the Betrayer. And I had no shielding ability, won the fight, killed the Betrayer. And I quartered him, but he had the heirloom. And I think I lost. If you don't count the Mumuk, I lost 1 model to combat. And the Mumuk ran over like 8 dudes. So I broke him and quartered him, but he had the heirloom. I had banner, leader kill, break without breaking broken. So I think it was an 8-12 loss. So good job to Griff. He played it really well, and he played the objective with the Mumuk, which is what I didn't want him to do. And I could have tried picking up stuff with the Raiders too, because I only ended up picking up 1 of the decoys, and he picked up 4 because the Mumuk kind of shielded off the rest.
Hmm.
So I probably should have gone a warband just on the far side because I think my 2 of my warbands could have taken out that small Betrayer and Taskmaster and then tagged the other objectives. But at the end of the day, even though I killed his army, he played the objectives, and that's the goal of the game.
Yep. Trey, did you end up playing against Griff with the Mumok?
I I have played him once, but I played him last year with it. This
Okay.
year I did not get to play it.
I was gonna say, because Griff, he's like the only person I know locally who tries to make a competitive list with the Mumok, and he's actually he's getting better at it, like
Oh yeah,
every time he plays in a tournament. And I think every game he played, he quartered himself by running over his own guys or just lost the game. So like he was like winning games off of just running over his own dudes, which is like not everyone does that with the Moonwalker or just thinks to do
Yep.
that. Some people
Because
do, but
he's getting into winning positions and then
Yeah.
going, if I end the game right now, I guarantee win. There's a
Yep.
chance that if I don't, you can come back and win. And so he's just like, you know what? If I win, I win. And that's the correct way to play with that. Because Mumok's one dice roll and you could lose a game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're in the winning position, if you can end it right there, that is so smart.
And I think the important thing is in some of the other tournaments, he hasn't taken ropes on the Mumak, but
Yes.
obviously
Hmm.
ropes is away because if he runs over his whole army on the ground, he still, I don't think, would quarter because there's enough dudes in the Howdah. But
Yeah, so he
yeah, the
needs to
ropes
drop some out.
were really big in that game, and I think in most of the games he played. So yeah.
I think you can also, if you drop out a bunch of guys like at like the end of a turn, the next turn when you trample them, they all get hit at the same time,
Oh,
instead of being one at a time because they're all like in base contact.
In base contact. Yeah.
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 So, all right. Trey, how was your first game?
My first game was actually really interesting. This was the game that I was looking forward to the most. Not in this scenario, but I was playing Josh. So
Hmm.
Josh has a very similar list to that I've been looking at playing, which is a great Army of the Great Eye, that one. And he has the Dark Marshal, Shelob, the Witch King, the Mouth of Sauron, and that's it, I think. Yes.
Hold on. He had Witch King on Fell Beast, Dark Marshal,
Mouth,
the Mouth, and I thought he had one more
Shelob,
guy.
Shelob
was
Shelob.
was
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
dark
yeah.
was
Yeah.
the Dark Marshal mounted or on foot?
On foot.
on foot.
Okay, yeah.
And so this one was really interesting because, like, for the first time ever in a tournament, I was able to give my opponent the priority. So he moved
Hmm.
on, and his first few rolls, like he rolled bad, then he rolled good, then bad, then good. So he was kind of spread out, which honestly for heirlooms, this is one of the scenarios that's actually not bad for that. Because if one of your groups gets picked on, the rest just go grab the objectives, and if they beat you to it, then they win the game still. So it's really a race of if you can have one warband actually die slowly and buy enough time, it's great. Otherwise, you can be in a bad position. And so my army came on decently well. He picked first warband, which was a Hasharan, to go on semi close to Shelob, and I pretty much just set it up so that if she got priority, she could charge, but she couldn't charge my Hasharan, and was able to still get bow shots. So I was able to get a bow shot, a throwing weapon, and the Hasharan's blowpipe into her that first turn. Didn't do anything, but it was there. Then the rest of my warbands, one Hasharan stayed off the board. The rest were able to come on, and they all came in around his Dark Marshal, which was like the farthest away from like every other warband, because it was like the Dark Marshal on one side, then there was Mouth of Sauron like 8 inches to the side of him, then Shelob, and then in the other corner was the Witch King. And so I was like, well, if I do this, then I can pick on Warren Warband. It's nowhere near breaking him, but it'll take out one of his bigger casters and I can take out some utility. So that's what I did. I came on, I was able to get some decent shots off, killed quite a few guys. Next turn went in, killed the Dark Marshal, killed like most of that warband except for like 4 dudes in like one turn, which is great. And then the issue was is he marched with the Mouth of Sauron, and the first objective those turned over was the heirloom. And so now my army's here. And that same turn, he got to pick where my Hasharan came in, and my Hasharan rolled a 2, so he couldn't might up to a 4 and get to choose. So he stuck my Hasharan with all of the rest of my army. So now all of my army's in like one spot, other than the 80 points holding up Shelob in the other corner. And so I was just like, well, now it's a race, because now I need to keep him from breaking and quartering while still getting up movement and setting up for the kill on the Mouth of Sauron. And so it turned into a mess because he pretty much just ran his entire army at me, threw the Witch King off onto some side objectives to dismount and start collecting them and getting all the decoys so that I couldn't possibly tie him with the other objectives. And so he got like all of the decoys other than like two. I got two decoys, he got the rest. Um, and the nice thing for me was Corsairs have light shields. So my 13 Corsairs with light shields were each running into one orc every single turn, not throwing their throwing weapon and shielding. They did that the rest of the game because I was using my heroes to run into like 3 of them into one combat and hurry up combat and get an extra 6 inches of movement every single turn. So eventually it was the Mouth of Sauron by himself because he had thrown the rest of his orcs at me to slow me down in a corner, and a Hashiran, Dalamir, and like four dudes are just chasing him down. And so it was really just a pretty much as soon as the right combinations of priorities comes up and I can see where he's going, then I can get in range, call a heroic move. He calls move, I win the Wrath, I can pin him, and one of the turns he called to move to kind of dance away. And then the last turn of the game, he was out of my, I was able to call a move with my Hasharan, which is actually crucial because I could have done it with either him or Dalamir. And I was like, I'll just do the Hasharan. Did that. Dalamir rolls really bad on his courage chest to charge the Mouth of Sauron. He blows all of his might and all of his will just
Oh.
to charge.
Wow.
So I was like, hey, if I go in with might, I should win, kill him instantly. So now it's no, neither of us have might. I have like 7 dice to his 2. He rolls a 6. And so I'm like, oh crap. I did roll a 6. I rolled like all twos and then 1 6. So I was like
Oh.
so scared. And then I saw the 6 come out. I was like, okay, great. And so I killed him, got the objective. That same turn, a Hasharan killed Shelob. And then I like wiped out the rest of his force that turn. So at that point, it was really just a game of can he kill himself before I get to him, or can we time out before then? Which we ended with like 15, 20 minutes on the clock. So like
Hmm.
that wasn't as much of an issue. The issue was I broke him. And so now I left Delgamar with his 3 might in the middle of his like mosh pit of dudes, just calling a move every turn so I could tie him up without having them run away. But he got to the point where he had 1 model off quarter for like the last 2 turns. And it was just like, if I don't pin one dude, I'm screwed. And
Yeah.
yeah, but those light shields, man, they won that game.
You always talk about your favorite War Garrosh and the light shields.
The light shield.
Yeah, my
They
Lakes
come in
Town
clutch.
Militia, Corsairs. Yeah, it was great. So yeah,
Yeah.
that ended up as a 13-5 major victory.
Okay.
Yeah.
How different do you think it would have been if he went like aggressive at you with kept the Witch King on the Fell Beast, tried to kill enough dudes to prevent that? Or do you think the right strategy was trying to quarter yourself and just end with the objective?
I think it was because the ultimate thing is if he throws in the Witch King, I could have pretty much switched strategies completely. I pick up 2 more decoys and kill the Witch King. It's tie ball game no matter what. And then if he's broken, the Mouth of Sauron has like a 6 up courage, so like it's good, but he can fail, and he had already spent some will. I think he had 2 left. So I do think he made the right choice. His one big mistake was he called that move a turn before he should have, because if he hadn't, he still would have been able to move again and stay without outside of 6 inches, and I wouldn't have been able to pin him that turn. I don't know why he called the move, but he did, and then I was pretty much able to get within 6 inches with my 2 heroes, and then they had spear sports that could support them. Call the move, he can't counter, so I was guaranteed to get into him, and then I just ended the game. So I think the might usage there was just a bit off. And this is the big game where I really wanted March, because if I had March, this game would have been such a flop. Like I
Yeah.
would have had so much more utility to be able to chase him down, or
Just
just grab more
Maelstrom in general.
decoys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but I barely pulled that one out.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I mean, Josh is a great player. I had to play him round two after you beat him because, he lost his game, so I was the ringer. Um, and playing against him, I was like, wow, this list is actually like really solid too. Like he had so much
Yeah.
casting. Shelob is such a threat. He has the Aura of Command with Dark Marshal, so she's never running away. Yeah, it's a good list, and he's a good player.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
yeah,
It's just a very high skill level list because you've
yeah,
got 32 models of Mordor orcs, Shelob, and a bunch of 1 attack casters other than the mouth. It's
hmm,
just, I guess the Witch King's 3 attacks this edition too.
yeah,
But it's
Yep.
very micromanaging of how you use your troops, using your casting at the right time, and then just letting Shelob do her work. It would have been interesting. Because I was playing with a man list, so Sheila was just like, yeah, 2 or 3 attacks every turn, and then had the
yeah,
great eye token by her every turn. So she was pretty reliable. I still beat her quite a bit and ended up killing her, but
Yeah.
yeah,
it's an interesting list. I do like it though.
yeah. Um, I don't know if you want me to go into the ringer games. I do play
Sure.
against Josh again, and he's a good player. And then the first player I played round one on Maelstrom, which for context, my list, I play it all the time. If you know me, you know my list. It's the Gullivar, Shadows of Angmar with Gullivar, two Barrow Wights, four Shamans, and then as many Orcs as you can take. It's usually around 42 to 48 models, depending on the points. And I got to pair against Josiah, who is also a Shadows of Angmar player. And he brought, I think, three Barrow Wights or two. I think it was three. The Shadow and Gullivar. And I don't remember what the mission was. I believe it was Command the Battlefield, and all of our war bands were just all over the place. Like we rolled so bad. We were rolling like ones and twos, and like on the ones we would get like a three on the next turn. It was just like
Oh,
it was terrible. And yeah, obviously you have no might with a lot of that, or at least very little. So it's a really hard list to play on Maelstrom. Like Shadows of
yeah.
Angmar's, it's probably the weakest pool for that list, but we're both playing it, so it didn't matter. And he got like two-thirds of his army consolidated. He kind of had them on two separate sections, and he kind of pushed them together. And then I had two of my warbands directly in the middle of that. But there was like a terrain piece that I was running towards. That was like a big rock formation that had like a crescent shape. And so I went through the middle of it because he couldn't get to me from either side because the rocks were blocking. And then I was able to get Gullivar to come assist. So with my shamans, like obviously, if you know the list, you know what I'm doing with them. But if you don't know, they have Wither, and so if you cast Wither and it successfully goes off, you lower the model's strength by one strength permanently. If they go to zero strength, they die. So with four shamans, you have a pretty good chance of killing a hero or a model that you need to kill, like a banner or something. And in this case, I killed two heroes because I just rolled so good on the casting. Like I got natural sixes on the casts when I needed to, and then the heroic channels went through. He didn't resist any of them. I think I killed a Barrow-wight and oh, he had Nasdaq as well, actually.
Oh.
And I got him down to strength one, and I might have killed him with the Wither. I don't remember. It was either I didn't, and he was at like one strength for the rest of the game and just useless, or I killed him and then he just like, you know, it was like on the last cast or something like that. Um, but Josiah is still like newish to the game. He misplaced two of his Barrow Wights, so I was able to charge them with Ghoulie, both of them at the same time and kill both.
Mm.
Which it's a learning experience. I told him how he can avoid that in the future, but he is a growing player, and I think he's doing pretty well in his local scene. And what did he end up? He ended up placing seventh out overall, so like right in the middle. So that's not too bad for like a first time player. He's been playing for like 6 months or something.
Yeah.
He said he'd been playing for like two or three, I believe.
Oh, even
He's
less. Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, from what I
Yeah.
saw, there was like a few things in some of his games where I was able to see where I was like, could have maybe tweaked this or
Yeah.
that, but like overall, he has a great mind for the game.
Yeah, yeah. He's
Mm.
learning really quickly.
How was the terror on terror? Was that weird
Oh.
or did it affect too much?
It actually mattered more for me than for him, and the reasoning was because the models that were kind of like really far away from the entire like main fight were his Barrow Wights. So as soon as I heroic channeled to kill the other Barrow Wight, he didn't have any terror anywhere.
Mm.
His Gullivar was kind of in an awkward spot too. He couldn't really like get him in to like provide that terror bubble. So I was basically giving myself my terror bubble, and then he failed a lot of courage checks to pass. Like a lot of times his army was just sitting still, and then I would work around it. And so it was actually a pretty rough situation for him in that sense.
Yeah. And just a note too, because Andrew's not here, he started by getting a 20 to 2 or something against Road to Rivendell.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and he was playing Men of the West. So Men of the West against Road to
Dirty.
Rivendell. He got 20 VPs. Um,
He
and
tabled it.
he tabled it. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I
Yeah,
remember that. I think did he table his second game? I guess we can talk about the next round.
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it was pretty close to the table, if I remember
He
Yeah,
correctly.
got
he
another 20 VPs. Like he was fully loaded on VPs. By the end of the tournament, he had 47. So maybe that's a spoiler for round three, but yeah, he was killing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So my round two, I already knew I couldn't win the tournament because that's how math works. But I could try and make a podium. Probably not after Andrew got 20. So I was kind of here to see how fast my list can kill things. And I was playing against Fangorn, and it was the killing pool. So I wouldn't say a Maelstrom Mumuk is a bad matchup, but this was a bad matchup. However, the way Veto went was super weird because she got to veto first, and she vetoed Lords of Battle,
Yeah.
which not really sure why, but I was like, oh, I'm vetoing contest. I'm not playing that. Normally, my plan going into that was contest would be okay because I just throw the Golden King in to Treebeard and just 6 turns of no strikes. But we ended up playing to the death, which is basically the best possible matchup for me because I have a banner on the Golden King that's never gonna die. And I set up kind of central, and she put Treebeard in the middle by himself. And she had, I forget the names, she had two of the other Ent heroes, the one that gets like free moves, and then the one with like 3 might and strike or something like that. And two regular Ents. And she split up her force, so Treebeard was in the middle, and then there was a hero with an Ent on each side. And like I kind of danced around because I'm a bit faster, and she was half moving with her Ents and throwing stones, which I forgot how long of a range they are. So I think they killed like 6 models or something.
Can they
Because
move
she was
half and throw
just,
stones?
I think there was
Only one
specifically,
can.
yeah, I think there was
There's
only
one
one
ant.
that could.
Oh, right. Yeah, I
And then
remember
the
that
others
actually.
would like move full and not. So it's not like there wasn't, but Treebeard kind of sat in the middle and was like hurling rocks, and then the one Ent was running. But basically, I kind of danced around, was like taking casualties from the throw stones, which is super annoying. But I got it to where I basically got my whole army on one side and threw Amdur, a Dragon Knight, and like 10 dudes into an Ent without strike. Called the strike with Amdur and did 2 wounds. I was like, oh. So then she got priority, switched it. So she put the warrior Ent into them, and the other Ent had to like get out of dodge. And Amdur called a strike, Dragon Knight called a combat, and I barely got a wound. A warrior got like a 6x4 to get the combat off, combated into the other Ent, and did 9 wounds. So Amder's double tapped an Ent, and at this point, I quickly just marched around to deal with the incoming Ents. Golden King got into Treebeard and just was throwing will shields at him every turn. There was a couple turns where like they got priority and like ran into 2 dudes and killed them, but and then Hamdur with his last point of might and the Dragon Knight and a bunch of dudes went into the other hero Ent, called the last strike, got higher again because the Elven Blade, and ended up doing 13 wounds to the Ent. Because
Wow.
I'd throw in my pikes and two hand, and then Amdur's wounding on fives, Dragon Knight's wounding on sixes, and they have like 8 attacks when it's trapped. And so at this one, I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good. I'm nowhere near broken. There's a warrior Ent, and there's Treebeard. For the next 3 turns, I proceeded to throw the Golden King into Treebeard and every model possible into the Ent. Roll a 6, she rolled a 6, and then one on the Elven Blade roll off. And then bludgeoned Amdur, who survived on 1 wound. Next turn, did the exact same thing, won again on the Elven Blade roll off, bludgeoned like 10 models. Didn't kill Amdur because she didn't use Amdur this time. And then the third turn, I finally won and killed it. But at this point, I'm like already broken. So I'm like trying to like quarter myself, but it's just Treebeard left in the Hobbits, which can't be quartered. So, and then proceeded to have 3 turns where I Treebeard was out of might at this point because the Golden King with a trap is scary. So ended up throwing like for 2 turns, just getting a 6, killed Amdur. I think killed the Dragon Knight. I don't remember. I know the Dragon Knight fled. I forgot. Because I was
Oh
testing
wow.
for courage every turn. The Dragon Knight fled because he has no will and no might. And then like I was one away from quarter, and then I won and killed Treebeard and did like 13 wounds or something ridiculous. So Amber killed 4 Ents, and I got concerned because I almost got quartered, but it ended up being like 16 to 4. So
Yeah.
I I think, yeah, if she just doesn't veto Lords of Battle, we end up playing Contest or Assassination, and those are harder matchups for me. But
Yeah. But I mean, with the way that it worked out, you basically tabled her, so I don't know
yeah,
how much different would it have been.
yeah, that was the other thing is like if for some reason we play Contest or something, like as long as I table, I can get the win, and my
Yeah.
list plays okay into Ents because Amber with the strike just kills things. So
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, round two. Okay, I was facing Parker, I believe, and he
Uh,
had
this is Ravenhill, right? No.
yes,
Oh, okay, that's Peter. Peter.
Peter. Okay,
Peter Parker.
and he had Assault on Ravenhill, and so I was like, okay, Assault on Ravenhill. It's a good list. It's solid. Then Pool Four comes up, and so I was just like, oh crap. Pool Four and a
Is it
all
pool
hero
two?
list.
Is Killing pool two? I don't remember.
Yeah, that's
I don't
Pool Two
remember
now.
any of the
Last edition
pools.
Pool Kill was Pool Four or
Whatever the
something.
killing pool is.
Yes. And so I was just sitting there like, well, this will be interesting. He's got Legolas, so he can still shoot me. And Legolas is an elven cleric. Okay, great. So I can't just sit back and try to whittle him out. So through all the veto, I veto Lords of Battle, obviously, and he vetoes to the death. So it's either assassination or contest. We rolled into contest, which was actually very interesting because he picked Dwalin as his champion. And the reason for that is because Dwalin can get like the free combats if Thorin is engaged. And so his thinking was just engage them side by side, get Dwalin some kills, run into combat with Thorin. They're not going to lose a fight together, and then get a kill. So he was just like, I can get free combats, use his might to make sure I'm winning those combats and get kills. My thinking was, at least it's not Thorin. He's fight six, not fight seven. I can deal with this. And so the first turn, we just dance around, take some shots. Legolas does 2 wounds to Dalamir. And so I'm like, okay, well, my leader's now down 2 wounds. He has 2 wounds, so we're using fate. I burned all of my fate. So I'm at like 1 wound, 1 fate. And so I was just like, well, this will be interesting. So the rest of the game, it was engage Dalamir where Legolas can't see him and keep one-shotting him. So the next turn I was able to do that, but I set up this weird engage front where I had like all 13 of my archers just pouring into him every turn. So I got Dwalin down a wound, Feely down a wound, and Keely down a wound. So already I'm feeling fine. I've got some damage off on his D8 heroes. Legolas is being a pill. He's killed like 3 dudes, done 2 wounds to my leader. So this could be interesting still. So I set up a Hasharan where he could access Legolas through a climb, which I did, was able to pin Legolas, and then Legolas proceeded to use all of his might to win the fight the next turn, and then just over the next few turns shot that same Hasharan to death, which was sad. Um, but he held up Legolas for like 3 turns and forced out all 3 might. So I was like, that's a worthy trade for one of my Hasharan. And so I set up an engage where he got priority. He ran into me. He was only able to engage troops, but if Michael's very familiar with my playstyle, I play very open with tons of gaps all over in my lines. So I was able to pick and choose where my heroes ran it. And because of the weird V shape I had set up, I was able to throw both one Hasharan and Dalamir into Keely, who was on like the far like line of his heroes. And I was like, well, now we've got a game because I will call the strike combat here. I've got a trap. All of my heroes have backstabbers except for Delgamar, who wasn't engaged. So I've got 2 heroes with a trap on him. All of his heroes are fighting troops. I can throwing weapon and shoot them out. So that's exactly what I did. I shot out all of the troops that were in combat with every single model.
Wow.
Except for there was one troop guy that was still in combat with Dwalin. So then it became just a heroic combat off to see if Dwalin could win and run 5 inches away. Which, yeah, okay. If you want to run 5 inches away, I'll just kill a different hero. But because I was able to shoot out all of his other heroes with my 13 bows and all my throwing weapons, I was just like, okay, now I can call a combat. So I called a combat strike with Sharon and Dalamir. So Feely obviously called a strike just in case he could get enough fight value. And so I was like, okay, he's got 3 dice with a reroll and a might point. Hopefully he flops on his dice roll and I don't. So strike, we both rolled a 5 or something. So we both rolled well. So I got higher fight, but he came to the choice of all of my heroes have to call a strike, or they all don't, and I save like what is that, 4 or 5 points of might, and maybe one of them dies. They're all high defense. Probably won't go into Tariel because then she gets like 8 attacks. And so he was just like, I'll save the 5 or whatever might from striking on all the heroes. And so I was like, okay. Did that, won the roll off, but he did call combat with uh Dwalin. So Dwalin, if he got the roll off, could get away and for sure be alive. I won the roll off, was able to get into Dwalin with both. And the only reason I was able to get in both is because I used my troops to pin the other guys, threw them both in, knowing that his combat went next. Because he called a heroic combat, he was forced to go next, which means he was trapped, which was
Hmm.
the downfall. Because then I just absolutely destroyed him. So he lost his champion. Dalamir got 2 kills, turn 1 of combat. So the rest of the game, I was just like, you know what? I'm already going to have to face Andrew if he wins. And he already has a massive VP differential. And from what I was seeing, because he was on the table right by me, he was in a pretty comfortable position. I didn't know what scenario they were playing, but I figured he was going to win. And so I was like, at this point, it isn't down to VP. So I was like, we'll just have fun rather than like running away and just staying outside at 5 inches of his dwarves. I was just like, let's just throw everything in. So I was able to I killed like Keely or no, Feely. I got him down to one model off quarter. So Thorin was on like 1 wound because I just kept putting all of my bow shots into him and just eventually whittled him down. Legolas was on 1 wound, and then Feely was on 1 wound, and then Tariel was perfectly fine, just killing everything. So at the end of the day, it was like a 10-4 major victory because I just out killed him with like everything, and he just killed a couple things.
All right. So I guess for my round two, I played against Josh, who was Trey's round one. And I had never played him before, and I had heard from a lot of people that he's a good player. And after playing against him, I agree with that because I actually lost the game. But to give some context, one of the things I did as a ringer, I do this because I think it's just more interesting and I think it makes it fun, is whenever I'm playing someone with my ringer list, I give them two options. I say you can either get a free minor win, where your VP differential is 1, and whatever VPs you score is what you score. So if you get 7 VPs, that means your opponent scored 6, and you effectively get a minor win, 1 VP over your opponent. Alternative is I just play you legit. And like I'm not the best player ever, but I'm not like an easy player either. So like I feel like it's a fun challenge for people who want to like at least do better, to try and play me legit. And if they lose the game, they lose the game. And you know, they're playing a ringer and lost. So like yeah, I actually don't know what I would have done in the long shanks if that happened, but Josh, he was like, I'm gonna play you legit, and I said, okay, I'll play you legit. And so we got Contest of Champions as our mission. And there was basically two choices he had. For me, Ghoulie is an easy choice for my assassin, or not my assassin, my champion. He got to pick between Witch King or Shelob. And he was thinking about it for a little bit, and he ended up deciding on Shelob, which I thought was an interesting choice. And in hindsight, I believe that was the right choice. For reasons I will say in a second. So basically, he puts Shelob on the line because you kind of have to, and then I put my goalie. Goalie in my list is by himself. He doesn't have any troops with him, so he's just sitting there. And then whenever we do the warband placement, I get all of my warbands up at the front, except for one in the back, and it's like a random shaman. And then he gets two of the two casters in the back, and then the Witch King gets to decide where he wants to go, and he kind of puts him not all the way back, but a little bit farther back, because I mean he has range, he can do whatever he needs to. And then first turn, I think I got priority and I took it, and he didn't call anything. And I charged in with Gullivar into Shelob just to see. I like for me, there's no, I guess like risk in like I'm not gonna win the tournament or there's nothing like that. So I was kind of playing a little bit more loose than I would, but I felt like I had a chance of at least killing Shelob like right from the get-go. And so I charged Shelob. I set up my battle lines such that he couldn't get anyone else into Gullivar, so Shelob was basically just one attack with the banner. Um, and I had five with no banner, but I had might behind me and like all this other stuff. And then I also casted Wither, channeled Wither on the Fell Beast of the Witch King, which some people see that and they're like, "Why are you doing that?" And they don't realize that like once you become strength 5 instead of strength 6, if you get hurled at, you're knocked prone. So if you hurl something at the Witch King when he's strength 5 on the Fell Beast, like he's just off the Fell Beast. Like that's just it. And so I do that tactic pretty often. Basically every time I play a Witch King, you wither, try and wither and nobody ever resists it. Nobody does. They don't either don't realize it, don't care. Like I don't know, but he ended up charging his Witch King in kind of close to where my Gullivar was to try and heroic combat to get him in. And that was a risk because he had the Morgul Blade
Ooh.
and Strike. But I mean, if he's heroic combat, he's not calling Strike. But I think Shelob ties fight value with Gullivar as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's still a good chance that he can win the fight regardless. And if he wins the fight, it's like he basically wins the game. If I win the fight, I basically win the game. And then I finish all my casting. Nothing really crazy happens. He resists most things, or just anything that's unimportant doesn't really happen or happens. I think I got Shelob down a couple of courage. I used drain courage because the shamans have that as well. And then he calls heroic combat with the Witch King. I expect that. I believe I called a heroic defense. I don't remember if I did or not. I was thinking about it for sure, but I don't remember if I called it or not. I think I do call it, and so I have like two might, and he spends his first, and then he is fighting four warriors. I decide to spear support with the spears. He is two guys and then two spears, and he loses the fight.
Ooh.
He loses the fight against four warriors, and I'm like, well, that's good for me, I guess. I try to wound him, don't. Or I get one through, but he fates it, so it doesn't really matter. And then I try to fight Shelob with the Gullivar, and Gullivar rolls I think a 5, which is it happens. Shelob just gets the 6, like straight out, like on the one die 6. I'm like, okay, cool. So I spend the might. I have one might left, and then we do a roll off. He wins the roll off. I'm like,
Oh.
okay. And then he does the special brutal power attack, where if he wounds you, he paralyzes you. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot she has that. He paralyzes me, of course. And then I'm like, well, great. I'm paralyzed now in the middle of the entire battle line with the Witch King right there, ready to swoop in and like everything. This is looking bad. And then I see it if I get up from the paralyzed because I get to do that. It's the end phase. I get a 6. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
And so I'm like, well, that's great. Next turn, I think he wins the move off, but I call heroic move with one of my shamans. I charge Gullion again and casted a bunch of it again. This time I started casting a lot of Drain Courages on Shelob because I actually forgot that Dark Marshal has Aura of Command, which was my fatal mistake
Mm.
because by the end of me casting everything on Shelob, she was Courage 9 plus. And so basically anytime if she wasn't fearless from Aura of Command, anytime I would have wounded her, she would have just probably ran away. With a pretty high likelihood. And she had already spent some will before to like do something. I think it was for an earlier wound I did or so. I did like 2 wounds to her at some point. And then like I finished like all of my casting, like all my shamans are out of will, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna cast Aura of Command. He waits till the last second to do Aura of Command, and I just like face palm because I wasted so
Oh.
many casts of Drain Courage on on Shelob and on the Witch King actually too. And he just didn't resist any of it. He's like, okay. And I'm like, that's weird. But I just forgot Dark Marshal has it, which is literally one of the key points of that list is to use the Aura of Command to make sure Shelob doesn't run away. He pulls that off on me, and then I think I eventually run out of my Unguli. He ends up killing Guli, and at that point it's over. I didn't get any kills with Guli. He, I think, killed Guli with his Witch King just by using the Morgul Blade, and at that point the game was over for me. But I still played it out, we're just having fun at that point. So I tried to do as many things as I could. Try to paralyze the Witch King, couldn't get it. I paralyzed the Shelob at one point, but she was behind the line because the line's kind of pushed past her, and so she was just like safe back there, didn't have to worry about it. And then it ended up being I don't remember, probably like a 13-2 or something. Like it was a pretty, no, 16. He got 16 VPs. But yeah, it was he won just handedly, and he played really well. There were some moments where, like, if I had won that 50-50 roll off with Gullivar, I would have probably just won the game on the spot, but that's how it is sometimes. And I played into that risk, and that was, up to me for that to happen. So
Yeah. No, it sounds like it's a really good contest. I have yet to play like in tournament,
hmm
and there's just some weird things. Like I don't know how much. I'm probably the hero free heroic moves didn't affect that much or anything like that. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario. Probably one of the skewier scenarios. I think in this matchup though, it worked out pretty
yeah,
well.
yeah. I really like that they changed the champion assignment, though. I think that was a good change.
Yes.
Yep,
All
I
right.
think the warband thing is still just whacked up and weird,
Oh, it's
but
so messed
Yeah,
up.
yeah. It is. I don't know why they did that, but yeah. I think they flipped it actually from what it was last edition too. It's
yeah.
like I think if you rolled bad, you had to go in the back or something, and now it's the opposite. Or am I getting that wrong?
It's so last edition it wasn't even on this one. Last edition was just your general
Oh,
has to be
right.
within 3 inches.
Oh,
This edition they just added the caveat on a 1, 2, 3 that warband is in the back half of the table. So you
Yeah.
could end up with a situation where you've got your general's warband and every other warband in your army is on the back half of the board, and then
Yep.
your opponent has like their entire army. So they removed some skew and added a bunch.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate because also it's like, my Gullivar in that game was like completely by himself. So if he's by himself at the front of the
yeah.
line, even if he gets as far back as he can possibly, like it's still not a good situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I guess round three now.
Round three. Yeah. So I knew at this point there was no way I could even podium because unless Andrew wins, basically, because he just has enough VPs and stuff. So
hmm
this game was super fun, actually. It was against Alan and Last Alliance. So Isildur, Aristor, Captain. And I want to say like 38, 39 models.
It was 38.
So I looked at that list and I was like, all right, there's a ring, and I'm outnumbered by 10 models against elves and Numenorians. Luckily, though, it was the unique pools. So, and I actually had more shots than him. I think he only brought four archers, and I had like six and some throwing weapons. So it was between, I think it was Clash by Moonlight or Lead from the Front. So we ended up getting Lead from the Front, which I'm pretty happy with because I don't care if my army dies. It's all about heroes. But he does have a Isildur with the ring, and the Dragon Knight can't do anything against that. Amber doesn't have defense or anything. So it started out kind of pretty simple. We deployed in the center. I marched up with, or drummed up with my Eastlings on one side. And then I won priority. I took priority and I went, both of my heroes just straight into his line, could reach it. The captain was on one flank and Aristor and Isildur were in the middle. But I could throw Amdur into the elf captain, but then Isildur could run in, dismount, and tag Amdur and put on the ring. So I ended up just charging a couple elves, and the Dragon Knight's horse got killed by the Whirl of Blades, and he rolled a one. So he's prone. So I was like, oh, great. Because basically my goal here is like, I just need to kill some dudes and then try and get heroes. Ironically enough, though, he still throws in his captain into Amdur, who charged, which I think was probably the biggest mistake he made because that turn Amdur won and just deleted the captain. Like
He
eight dice needing
probably thought
fives.
was it, I was assuming it's an elven captain.
Elven captain, yeah.
He
Maybe he thought it
probably
was fight
benefit
six
of
or
the
fight
doubt
seven.
probably thought Amdur was fight six still because last edition he was.
No, yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that.
Even then, yeah, that's true. He wins Amdur. But I deleted the captain, so automatically I'm up, and the Dragon Knight didn't lose, fortunately. So he's standing back up. So I'm up. a hero. Golden King's kind of in the center, and I have probably like 8 warriors and then my 4 Haradrim raiders. But there's like 20 Númenóreans and elves just marching up. He sends next turn is Isildur and Eristor. I think I called the move because I think he had moved it so Isildur could get into Amber. So I kind of moved Amber out of the way, blocked it off, so he couldn't get him in. He charged some of his dudes into combat and charged the Golden King in my line and stuff. And my Haradrim raiders got the charge off and all 4 of them actually I think I won one and killed dude, and the other 3 just died. Like they just rolled bad and just died. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh. His Whirl of Blaze wasn't like it wasn't doing too much. I think overall he got maybe like 7 kills. Like
Hmm.
he was throwing a lot of dice though, because I was trying to pin him in place and he just had a bucket load of elves. And then it just kind of got to killing stuff, and I did have a chance with the Golden King called a combat, which was risky because he's tied fight value. Won the fight and was able to combat into his banner and killed the banner. Couldn't pass it off. So that was useful because I got the banner VPs, but that was the only combat the Golden King won the entire game. And he rolled, I think, 1-6. So Golden King was useless, and he wisely didn't send any heroes there. Because I was like, yeah, send Isildur in with the ring. Isildur was doing some stuff, but he was failing combats. Eristor was doing that. Eventually, he got Isildur into Amdur and rolled like a 4 high. But Amdur wasn't on the charge, so I think Amdur did a wound, and then Amdur like ran away as far as he could into Eristor and killed Eristor. So at this point, I have 3 heroes. He has one. Golden King's on the central objective. He's never dying basically, and the far left objective, like he's got a couple troops there, but it doesn't really matter. Ends up I break pretty quickly, but then I don't lose models. Like I just start winning fights and killing elves, and he fails the ring test with the Isildur, and I send him like to the complete opposite edge of the objective. So he's away from there. And that turn, I broke him, and then he ran Isildur back, and he was 2 models off quarter, and I still had a might with Amdur. So Amdur actually ran onto one side to try and combat into the Golden King to have their combat take off a model from it, the Golden King's combat to have the Golden King combat. So I was basically going to try and get 3 objectives. Ended up doing that, and Namdor had to go back to the center because Isildur was still there, and the Golden King fails his combat because why not? And so he's 1 model off quarter, and I have a Dragon Knight who's on foot and like 4 dudes against an elf. Win the fight, don't kill the elf. So the game continues as Isildur is like, because Amdor had to get within 3, and so Amdor and my Dragon Knight are staring down like this is not how it's supposed to go. I think I win the move off, and I'm like at this point, okay. Isildur, I don't know if he had one. I think at this one he took off the ring and he had 1 might, and I had 1 might, and I was like, all right. So I just threw Amnir into Isildur, and we both called strike offs. I ended up winning on the Elven Blade. Amdur with 8 strikes, needing 5s, no wounds. My warriors do 2 wounds. He passes fate, 1 wound, no fate, and then I think one other model like dies. So game ends with the Golden King on the central. I have 2 heroes on one side, but it's all about tiers, so it ties. And then I have the banner VPs we both broke. So I think it ended up 8-1. And I think yeah, if his captain doesn't die there, he has the might to maybe counter some of my moves and stuff. Isildur had a couple chances to kill Amdur, or maybe just go into the Dragon Knight. But he played it really well. The Golden King was kind of useless besides being my leader and having banner VPs, which, like, I'm fine if he does that. But I was the first time I'd played lead to the front, besides, like, a practice game against Trey, like, in the summer at some time. But I enjoyed the scenario, and I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, I enjoy that scenario too, honestly.
I have had some very fun games in that scenario. My round 3 game? Oh yeah, I was facing Andrew.
Who's not here. He was a coward. He didn't show up.
Yeah, Andrew couldn't bear it.
No, he
So
couldn't.
Andrew just came off a 20-3 win, I think he got second round. It was another
Yeah,
20 to
something like that.
something. And it was against like Beorn and Battle of Five Armies. So it was fun for him. And so I was just like, okay, we're in specialty scenarios. This is arguably the worst of them because Gwaihir, Aragorn, Legolas, who do I want to go after? Legolas will sit in the back with his elven cloak. Gwaihir and Aragorn. Okay, well, let's hope we're not playing like Fog of War or something. So he goes in and he decides to veto convergence. And so we talked about this, and his reasoning for this is yes, he could throw Guahir by himself on one table corner and then his other two warbands together, but he would end up having to split up a little bit to pick up objectives and such, which then allows my army. It plays into the playstyle of my army, which is spread out and use throwing weapons a lot and pretty much force my opponent into bad positions. And so from there, I was just like, if we play that scenario, I should be good. And so he was like, well, if I do that, then Guahir's going to be picking up most of the objectives, which means if he's picking up more than one, those transfix rolls are going to come in big.
Yeah,
And
they
so he
stack.
was just like, I'll veto that. And so I was like, okay. So then I don't even remember I think I vetoed lead from the front, maybe,
Probably.
because I didn't want to deal with his heroes because his are harder to kill. I don't remember what I ended up vetoing.
And he has
No, I
Heroes of
vetoed
Legend
Fog of
too,
War.
right?
Yes, he
Yeah.
does have a Hero of Legend and then two
The
Heroes of Valor.
Dalamar
Okay.
is Hero of Legend, right?
Yeah.
He might be.
Yeah, I think he is. I'm pretty sure he is.
Okay. And so it ended up playing into Clash by Moonlight. And so I was
Mhm.
just like, okay, we've got Dark of Night. It's pretty much game over because I've got +1 to wound in shooting, and then with Hatred Gondor, I've got +1 to wound in combat. And so that is one of the best things about that list is Men of the West, you're just like, okay, I get +1 to wound for free against you. That's great. Um, but yeah, we walked into that one. I set up. It was just actually I really liked playing on this table because there's a fountain like right in the middle, except it was slightly off center, so the objective wasn't in the fountain. And then there was some nice pieces of woods that were great for my stock unseen. So I was using my Hasharan and Dalamir, running them up by the woods, just saying, okay, watch, now Legolas can't shoot us. Great. We can still shoot your guys. And so first turn, he moves up with the march, so he's pretty dang close. I just move up a little bit and we start shooting. So first turn, I take off a couple of dudes and just like a casual, did 5 wounds to Guahir. So he sits there, uses all of his fate and all of his might to pass all of his fate. So his Guahir's sitting there, 1 wound, no fate, no might. So I was just like, well, at this point, I was like, this shouldn't be too hard. And he's just sitting there like, well, I think it's game over. I'm like, yeah. Because if he commits Guahir, I put all of my archery into Guahir and kill Guahir in combat because I'm an evil army. And if he doesn't, Guahir still gets killed from shooting. So he was kind of in this, well, I've got to get something out of value of him. So he actually did play this very well from this point out. So he got a good engage, pretty much played defensive using the fountain as a wall to protect his smaller numbers of troops. And he ended up having to throw Aragorn not in combat, just in the middle of his two lines to throw up for Frodo so that my Hasharan would kind of bounce off, which didn't really happen because he got up to fight 5, but then all of my Hasharan combined got like 5 kills of my 3 Hasharan and Dalamir. So I still did a bunch of damage. I think at the end of the first turn, through just sheer combat and killing, I had done 16 kills, which was great. And then turn 2, I quartered him. I shot out Guahir because pretty much he committed Guahir onto this flank where he was 13 inches away from my archers with Legolas. So him and Legolas ran into this one dude called to combat. So he got like 3 kills with Guahir and was in a position to where he could get into my heroes. So I was just like, you know what? You played that well. You avoided the archery for a turn, but now you're cooked. And then, yeah, basically next turn I engaged, put one guy into Guahir, shot him out, killed him, and then quartered the rest of his force. So at that point, I had like 2 models more than he did on the central objective because I called like 3 combats with my Hasharan and Dalamir right there. Aragorn went into Dalamir and then did his 3 attacks into Dalamir, did 2 wounds, and then Dalamir, with a point of might, failed all of his fate. So that was funny because if I hadn't Eric, he would have got like 2 VPs. But instead, because it's like 4 VPs for the leader kill, he got 7 and I got like 11, which gave him a minor loss, placed him at third, and I got first. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That the reason Dalamir failed his fate is why I didn't kick Andrew off the podium. So,
yeah,
because
Wow.
I had a minor loss and 2 majors, and he had 2 major loss, and if or 2 major wins, and if he had a major loss there. But yeah,
Yeah. That was an interesting game to hear about. I think when I was playing my round three, I remember someone coming over to me. I think it was Andrew, and he was like, "Hey, for tabling, uh, if I get tabled, is that just a loss?" And I'm like, "I think so, yeah." And I was like, "Why are you asking me?" It was like we still had like an hour left. And he's like, "Oh, okay," and then he walked away. And I was like, "What is happening in their game? We have an hour, and they're talking about
Yeah.
tabling." All right.
I think that game was literally 3 turns because we moved up
I
Yeah.
and then I just killed him.
that's like the worst matchup and the worst scenario for
There's
him.
their pool. Yeah, it's like I think that's one of the strong suits of Umbar. Like I'm not a fan of Umbar, don't get me wrong. You know, Trey, he's just he does weird, but I will say that Umbar is good at dealing with men in the West. And the fact that he won a game against someone who's like pretty decent at the game as well is like that it makes sense. Like the list is like perfectly made to deal with it. No
Yep.
matter the scenario, really.
Yeah.
It's great when you can re-roll your throwing weapons in Dark of Night. That
Yeah.
added a ton because I was pretty much able to pin out where I wanted to engage, and I just got a ton of shooting kills. And then like Gwai here, I wouldn't have been able to knock out that much damage. I would have just been able to pretty much shoot out my guy like every single turn against Gwai here. But being able to kill him with archery and throwing weapons was just so nice.
Yeah. That's a really solid list and matchup scenario. I'm actually surprised
Yeah.
he didn't deny that. If I was him, I would have done that.
Hmm.
But I can understand why he did convergence instead.
In hindsight, I would agree convergence is probably better for him, but that's
Yeah.
just in hindsight. Like in the moment, I was just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That
Yeah.
probably is the worst for you. But in hindsight, seeing how Dark of Night really affected, I just pretty much deleted
Yeah.
Guai here.
Yeah.
Yeah, convergence would have been a better game for him, probably.
How
Yeah.
do you think it would have been if, because obviously it plays well into Men of the West, but what would it do? I think it plays pretty similarly versus Gandalf the White Aragorn build, because Gandalf has Blinding Light. So I
Yeah,
don't know how different that would have been.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting.
it's at that point, it's really just go in for the combat tricks. Because here's the end of the day, you've got 3 Hasharan and Dalamir who all have heroic defense and 3 points of fate. They're just tanks. So if you have them in a position where they can get a hero into them, you can use your might for a defense. You don't really even call heroic combats with the Hasharan. Although actually I did end up finding I can call quite a bit. Like I played a practice game against Michael and his
AOL.
goblins.
AOL.
AOL, yeah. And I called like 3. I think I used all of my Hasharan's might on combats that game because I was just able to. Well, that game there was so much going on.
So
We
close.
that game was crazy.
Yeah.
But that one again, it was just manipulation of how I could abuse it, and pretty much I just got to the point where I was like, if I call combats here and win, it'll put me in a position that puts him at such a disadvantage that if he rolls his way out of it, he will kill me. Otherwise, this should be ball game. I think that's just part of the list is like it has that chance to call the combats, but really those points of might, you can just save all 3 on each of the Hasharn for a strike or a defense when you really need it.
Yeah. They have one might each, and then Dalmir has two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think the utilization of that 1 point of might is like pretty huge for the utilizing them well, because there's such a I don't know if cost effective is the right word, but they're very good for what they do. But you have to be really knowledgeable or
Yes.
really know when to use that might at the right moment.
Hmm.
Yeah. I guess should I go into my round three now?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So my round three, the way I did this, and I like to do this for most tournaments, is I don't actually play against last place all the time. Especially for friendly events, because it doesn't matter too much, especially if you're at the bottom half of the tables. But there's a kid who is the son of one of the other players that was also at this tournament who ended up getting second place. And he's like around 11, and he has wanted to play me for so long, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna play him right now. And so he had Minas Tirith, he had Denethor, Faramir, and Irolas with a bunch of Citadel Guard. He had Faramir's warband was all Cav. He had an all Cav warband, and he had the Denethor just like hoarding out Minas Tirith guys. And I'm trying to remember what mission we ended up playing. Oh, it was lead from the front. We got lead from the front. And you know, he's 11. I I didn't expect him to be the greatest player ever, but also he was better than I expected. And in fact, he got me on a lot of things that I just didn't expect at all. One of the things was so lead from the front, we push up, and I don't have a lot of might in my list. Like Gullivar is most of my might. I have the shamans; they have a might each, but I'm usually saving that for heroic channels. Um, well, you know, I push up and I'm hiding. He has a bolt thrower as well. That's actually pretty important. I put Gullivar behind some trees because he has stock unseen, so I don't want to get shot by the bolt thrower. It's his only shooting. And then I put some orcs and I move them up, but obviously they're like behind Gullivar because Gullivar just moves so fast. What I didn't realize was that he can just shoot the orcs behind and have in the ways to hit Gullivar. So he starts shooting at the orcs behind Gullivar. Every single shot hits Gullivar.
Oh.
And he did 3 wounds to Gullivar immediately. And I'm just like, okay, that's fantastic. And so next turn, I'm like, I need to go get some like kills so that I can heal him back up again. And I'm not like really thinking about where I'm putting Gullivar too much. Like I'm not putting a lot of thought into this. But like I was just trying to have fun as well. So I run him in behind his lines and like charge a couple of guys. And importantly, I did not ask him where his heroes were because they were all painted very similarly. So I had no idea where his heroes were. And then, out of nowhere, Faramir comes in and charges Gullivar, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that's great. So Gullivar died early with all of his might, basically. I think I spent a heroic defense, but it was pointless because, he's just got so many attacks, and he only has 1 wound left. He's not living that. At that point, I'm just like, all right, well, I'm just gonna have fun, and so I start, sending random casting everywhere and doing all this crazy stuff. I call a few heroic channels. I'm mostly going after his banner, actually. I wanted to try and get his banner because most of my models were on the flank that Denethor and his banner were on. And so I wanted to get rid of his banner because then it would at least let me win a lot more of the fights. Because he was just consistently winning a lot of those fights pretty handedly. So I end up withering his banner when he has him out of position at one point. Or I had it like engaged everyone, and then it was like, he couldn't pass off to anyone. And then, I eventually run out of might on everyone except one shaman that I was saving for like a really important heroic move. And eventually that moment came. I call the heroic move. I do all my thing. And then we finish that turn. I'm actually breaking at this point. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna use the Palantir. And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot he had the Palantir. And so, I'm just like, well, that caught me off. And then what he does is he charges all of my heroes and none of the troops. And I'm like, okay, I see where this is going. And so all of my orcs start running away. A few of them, make it, and then I just like try to support the heroes by pulling off guys as best I can, but it's kind of too little too late. And he slowly kills all of my heroes except for one who was in range of an objective, obviously like from the front, but he had a higher tier hero, so it didn't matter. Because all my heroes are basically minor heroes. And then he ended up winning like I don't know 16-0 or something. Um Now like obviously I was playing, not very seriously, he's 11 and I just wanted him to have fun. That was the biggest thing. And he seemed like he was having a blast. He was like, "Palantir!" And I was like, "Okay, I forgot." Um and so
Yeah.
he had a good time and it was just a fun time. But yeah.
Yeah. No, you did your job well as the ringer. You
Yeah.
you didn't destroy their souls with the wither to death.
Yeah, I was really not wanting to do that because, like,
Yeah.
honestly, if you ever play against Wither Shaman spam, it is not fun to have your heroes wither to death, just like almost instantaneously. Like it just happened turn one. You just, all right, your hero's dead. and like
Yeah.
they didn't even get to do anything. So
We
I
did
know.
learn Gray Company plays into it well.
All right.
yeah, but that was also a scuffed mission. I don't want to talk about that game.
That was funny.
It was
Uh,
funny, but yeah.
yeah, so I think the like top five were Josh came fifth, I was fourth, Andrew third, and then the only two undefeated players were Jonathan, who brought Host to the Witch King, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yep.
And then Trey
And then
was in first
Trey.
with Umbar.
Yeah, Trey was in first.
Yeah.
Yep. I do want to give a shout out to Jonathan, who is the father of the kid that I played. Uh he's actually he has to drive like I think 6 or 7 hours to go to this tournament. So they really like dedicated a weekend to it. And he's really committed to the game. He lives very far away from where we usually host the events, and
Yeah.
he's going and he's practicing and he's getting better. He's obviously he got 3 wins. If he had gotten a major on one of his minor wins, he actually would have beaten Trey. Because the only thing that took him a point lower was his tournament points. He had one less TP, but he had a higher margin of victory, less VPs, but the margin of
Yeah.
victory was what I prioritized first. So he could have won the event easily. It was very close.
Yeah. No, it was super fun too. And the
hmm
venue was really great too.
Oh yeah,
It had
yeah,
some good
great venue.
locations as well.
First time we ran an event there, and it was really fantastic. It's what is the name of the venue? Do y'all remember? It's
It's The Adventure Begins.
The Adventure Begins
Venture
in
begins.
Conroe. It's like North Houston. So yeah, it was a great venue. They were really nice to us. They don't have any Lord of the Rings, but they do have a great store. And we're looking forward to maybe running an event there again. And I guess can I just say a few things about the Texas League?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So, I mean, obviously, a lot of people watch this from either in Texas or out of Texas, probably mostly out of Texas. But for any Texas players who aren't familiar with the league, we have a Discord for basically all of the events that we try to run in Texas. All of the events get counted towards the league. You just pay an entry fee of like $20 and you're in the league. You get I think right now we're still trying to figure out what we're going to be giving away to all the people who pay. But right now, what we do know what we're giving away is you get a raffle ticket, you get the chance at a Texas Masters ticket, get the chance at the NA Masters ticket if you get first place, first, second, or third. It depends if they accept it or not. So Trey got the NA Masters ticket this year or last year, I guess. Um, and yeah, we try to, just support the TOs, try to make a fun competitive environment. And if you don't do competitive events, that's fine too. We have stuff in the league for non-competitive players. You can have siege days and have that count as a league event. But yeah, just trying to grow the community as best we can.
Yeah, it's really awesome, and we're growing. We got a lot of new players. We also got people who've
Yeah.
been in the scene for a while and are coming back too. So it's really fun. And I
hmm
think
Yep.
all of us are also potentially going to be. I know Trey and I will be at Articon, at Adepticon,
Adepticon.
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 I newly found out I am going. I am going to the
Okay.
event, so I will see you all there. Hopefully, I can get an NA Masters ticket. We'll see if that happens, but I'm, not holding my breath on that.
There's three
Um,
of them. There's a chance.
there's a chance. There's a chance, but we'll see.
I know some of the NCQ lists that some of the players are bringing, and some of them are hilarious.
Yeah. They
Oh, I'm
some of
sure.
them are and I know a lot of the players in that event too, and they're like bringing like just wacky lists, like
Hmm.
counter whatever I'm literally to counter what I'm bringing. One of them is bringing something to counter me, and I'm just like, okay, well, that's cool. But yeah, it'll be fun. So I'm looking forward. I'm assuming y'all are gonna do a podcast on that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, look forward to that.
Trey's in the Master and GT, and then I'll be in the doubles and GT. So
Oh, not
it'll be
the
good.
last chance. You're not gonna play to see if you can get your ticket.
No,
We
Uh,
fly in Thursday.
we fly on
oh,
Thursday.
okay, that's fair. Yeah. All
Honestly,
right.
anyways, too, I'd probably get crushed if I go there. So
Nah, I think you'd be fine. You'd be surprised.
yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all from us. Thank you
hmm
for listening. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Reach out to any of us if you have any questions or want to join the Texas League. You can reach out to Alex, or one of us can give you his contact info if you need.
You can also maybe put the Discord in your like video description.
Yeah, I'll put the
Yeah.
Discord in that. So,
Yeah.
alrighty. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.